My name is Amy McInnes. This is The Art of Plenty, a podcast where I share my journey for personal development with you in hopes that in your journey in personal development, you are able to become the person that you know you were meant to be so that you can do the things that you were meant to do. I'm a big believer in purpose and in destiny, and that we're here for a reason and we have something to impart and to share during our time here. And that's what this podcast is all about. I am a mother of 5. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a registered clinical counselor. And I am a person who has both experienced and treated anxiety in my private practice. We are diving into this because a few weeks ago I recorded an episode about my own personal struggle with anxiety. And it was a difficult episode to record, but it's even been more difficult to actually release it. At this stage, I haven't yet. I haven't shared my story with you about experiencing panic. And when I was thinking about that, when I was processing the struggle that I have to share my own story, I was reflecting on the great number of people who experience anxiety and who experience anxiety on a day-to-day basis. So I've decided to create a couple episodes that help to paint this picture of what anxiety is, how it operates in the body, and different ways that we can move towards managing those symptoms and having freedom and hope from the thing that is crippling us, that is preventing us, that has prevented me from living the life that I knew that I was meant to and living the life that I wanted to live. When I was trying to decide where to begin, I decided that I wanted to start with peace. And the reason for that is I often see peace as the opposite of anxiety. And I've often thought that there are times when focusing on the actual problem, focusing on the anxiety, is too much to bear. Because of that, I've leaned towards what can I do to increase my peace? What can I do to increase my feeling of calm? Because I know that we can be experiencing both of those emotions at the same time. We can be feeling fearful and also calm. And it is a bit of a weight in which way one shifts. I also know because how they are so closely related, there's more than one way to approach managing anxiety. If we can increase our peace, the anxiety drops down just like a teeter-totter. And if we focus on pushing down the anxiety, we can also increase our peace by doing that. So today's episode, we're going to be exploring different ways that you can increase your peace, that you can increase your calm so that your symptoms and experience connected to anxiety can be lessened. We all have different capacity and a different threshold for the things that we can manage in our life. And when our threshold is at a certain level, it can become very difficult to handle any more things. It can be almost like a tipping point. So I was thinking about how to best describe this. And the way that I was thinking about it this morning was like a raft, like a life raft. And I'm picturing one of those ones from like Huckleberry Finn. So I'm seeing logs just strapped together, like a pretty archaic life raft. I'm not thinking of some amazing boat, but very minimal strung together. And the life raft keeps you out of the water. It keeps you floating. It keeps you above the things that cause you to sink, that cause you to drown. Now, what happens in life is there are certain circumstances, there are certain situations, stressors that happen in our life that add weight to that raft. And the amazing thing about this is these are also good things. There are many things in life that are stressors, but are actually the exact thing we want in our life, like a job promotion, like the beginning of a new relationship, like having a baby. These are all things that are beautiful and exciting and hopeful, inspiring events. But they still can be stressors. And the stress is the situation that comes at us, and we can have an anxious response to it. When we have a lot going on in our lives and we have a lot of stressors, good ones, bad ones, combinations, that puts weight on the raft. And the more weight that's down there, the easier it is to dip down underneath the surface, to feel like you're not going to make it, to feel like it's hard to breathe, to lose hope. So when your life raft is getting full, you start to become more vulnerable to things like an anxious response. If you can be intentional and see what is coming at you, if you can be somewhat ahead of the game and be like, okay, I know that this situation is coming up. I'm heading into a busy season with the kids. We're heading back to school. Anytime you have like a big lifestyle change, if you can get in front of that by employing some of these peace-increasing activities, it's easier to keep that raft kind of above the surface. And a lot of these events that come up in our life are somewhat predictable or scheduled, so we can do things going into it in order to prepare ourselves so that we have more capacity to manage things that come up. Because there's also things that show up that we didn't schedule and that we didn't plan for. And when those situations occur, the things that are completely out of our control, like somebody getting sick or ourselves getting sick, those are just two examples. Losing a job could be like that you weren't predicting. We need ways to ensure that we're in a good place so that we don't sink. And these activities that I'm going to share with you today are those types of activities. They help to alleviate some of the pressure of stressors, and they help to put us in a situation where we have more capacity to deal with the stressors, which helps to keep anxiety and other feelings at bay. So imagine that these peace exercises that I'm going to be sharing with you are almost like inflatables that you can blow up and put underneath the raft that just give you a little bit more buoyancy as you go through the river of life. Okay, here we go. Here's my list. Everything on this list are things that I have either done or do on a regular basis. I am sharing with you tools and strategies that I use to increase my peace, to increase my calm, and to keep me in a place where I'm more capable to handle the things that are coming at me. This list is not exhaustive. And I encourage you that if there are things that you already do, things that you already know how to do, and you know that they increase your peace, make sure you maintain these as a part of your repertoire, because this is not an exhaustive list. The first one, get outside. It sounds so simple, and it is simple, but intentional exposure to the outdoors is a great way to increase hope and peace. And if you live in a big city, go to a park. If you live in a small city like I do, where outdoors we have access to so many incredible places, they're within walking distance. Get outside and be intentional about being outside. And it's not just about getting out there, it's about noticing the world around you. There's something calm-inducing about seeing the earth growing and breathing, seeing the clouds, seeing the trees move in the wind, seeing the new blossoms. And one of the things that I find particularly calm-inducing is repetition. When I get outside and when I go to the same location and I go through it over a season, especially in spring, you start to notice what's happening in the environment around you, and you start to see the cyclical nature of the world that we live in, and that in itself is calm-inducing. My next strategy is to breathe. And not everybody likes doing breath work. And a lot of people find it insanely boring to sit and breathe. You may be one of those persons. But I want to encourage you that if this is not a practice you have done in the past, try it out. Try it out for a week, commit to 7 days. Even better, commit to 14 days. And notice what changes in your body when you breathe. There are so many different types of breathing regimes that you can incorporate. There are many different people like Wim Hof. He has a fabulous breathing one. His takes about 15 minutes for a cycle. But there's other ones that you can do that only take a couple minutes. And if you've never breathed deeply, the first couple times you do it, you might actually feel lightheaded. So sit down when you do it or lay down. It's a great exercise to do first thing in the morning, end of the day. But it's also something you can do in your car when you're sitting in traffic, when you're waiting for a kid to come out of an activity. The best thing about this is you don't need anything but yourself, and you're always with yourself. So you can incorporate this at any time in your day. The most simple breathing exercise that I have done and practiced over the years is to change the duration of the exhale compared to the inhale. So if you inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then exhale over 7 seconds or 8 seconds. There's something different when you get everything out that happens in that breathing, but there's lots of different types of breathing regimes you can do. Look it up. Try to fill your cavity with air. Try to get your breath right down into your stomach. There's other ones that you can do where you breathe and you expand your rib cage out to the front, or you push your rib cage out to the back or to the sides, or you expand your entire rib cage. And a component of breathing is being in the moment. It's being present. And this can be something that you can pair up with a breathing exercise, is to focus on what you're doing, to maintain your attention towards your breathing cycle rather than letting your mind ramble. The reason why I bring that up is because being present is another strategy that I use in experiences of anxiety. So we're going to talk about that when we talk about strategies to reduce anxiety, which will be a different episode. But that practice of being present can make an incredible difference, which leads me into my next piece, which is meditation. I think we often get these images, or I have often had these images when I didn't really know what meditation meant, of monks in Tibet, that they are the ones that know how to meditate. But meditation, in the way that I have come to understand it, is simply a way of focusing on something specific and ruminating on it and circulating it around and staying on it. There's different types of things that you can meditate on. You can choose certain thoughts. You can choose certain affirmations. You can simply meditate on something of beauty around you. So when you're outdoors, just focusing on those things. And if your mind wanders, it's okay. The point is to notice that your mind has wandered, to recognize, oh, I'm no longer meditating on what I set out to meditate. Oh, I'm no longer focusing on what I set out to focus on. And when you catch yourself doing that, draw yourself back. Another strategy that I've used for increasing my peace is to know what types of situations make you feel peaceful. When do you really start to feel like you're taking a deeper breath and relaxing? Is a bath something that does that for you? Is getting a massage something that does that for you? is body brushing something that does that for you? I bring up those 3 things because those are 3 things that definitely help me to feel more peaceful. Massage, not always, because sometimes that flippin' hurts. The other one that I want to mention is cuddling. Physical affection, physical touch can be very soothing. It doesn't necessarily mean it is for everyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be for you. But one of the amazing things that happens when you are being hugged or hugging someone for 30 seconds is you get a release of dopamine. And the same thing happens in a 6-second kiss. This comes from the research of Gottman, which is the relationship guru. But I wanted to share that with you because dopamine is one of those feel-good emotions. So there's a reason why when you hug or cuddle, you feel better. But it takes 60 seconds. Or if you're kissing, it takes 6 to get that release of dopamine. The next one I'm going to talk about is exercise. Now, everybody has a different fitness level, and everybody starts at a different place. And some people are really good about maintaining. This does not have to be hardcore. Exercise can simply be a walk. You can double down on your pace increase by walking outdoors. But for some people, walking isn't enough of an exercise. It isn't enough of an exertion level to activate their body in such a way that they sleep deeper and that they get that release. So there's something that happens in our bodies when we work out really hard, when we put our muscles through a lot of intensity. Cardio workouts, and also when you're lifting heavy or lifting weights, you get that muscle tension. And that type of exercise, when it's more intense, creates a lot of diversion. When you're really working hard at something and you're really focused on what you're doing, so that comes back to being present. So it creates a diversion away from anxiety thoughts. And when you have that muscle tension, because you're straining your muscles to lift or you're putting them through things, the reverse of that is you get a release. And I think that this is important because I notice with myself, when I have felt anxious, my whole body gets tense. And people carry it differently. Like some people carry it in their neck or in their arms or in the pit of their stomach. But anxiety is a tightening. And when that happens, when you get that tension from a workout, you also get the release. So that what ends up happening is that your body gets loose because it releases the tension after you hold the tension from lifting the weight. So when you work out physically, it almost mimics what the body needs to do with anxiety. Because when anxiety tightens everything up, you need peace to come to loosen everything up. Your body needs to be able to release your muscles and release the tension from your body. So when we do that in the physical, I think it helps to release things and to release the anxiety. And I mentioned quickly before that when you exercise, it impacts how you sleep. And when you get good sleeps and you get consistent sleep and have good sleep habits, your peace level increases. And this is a hard one because a lot of people that experience anxiety often have difficulty sleeping, but there are so many tricks for getting good sleeps. And if that's something that you feel like you need help with, send me a note, check out the show notes, and send me an email, and I will send you some resources for how to improve your sleep and how to work your sleep habits. And if that's something that enough people reach out and are saying that they need help with that, I'll put together an episode specifically related to sleep. Now, this one's super trendy, and it's cold exposure. And this has been trendy for a while, so I'm sure you know of people that are doing cold exposure. I'm sure you've heard about it because it's really popular. It's something that I have utilized to decrease anxiety. But I have to tell you this. If you are a woman and you are listening to this episode, what you need for cold exposure is very different than what men need. And unless you are reading something specific to women, the cold therapy regime you are reading about is most likely for male. Because most of the time, When people are talking about what you need to do, whether it's intermittent fasting or different types of exercise, most of the time those studies are done on males. Most of the time the regime recommendations are for males. And cold therapy is no different. We as women do not need the same amount of time in the cold, and we don't need the same degree of cold that men need. They have also found that the research for women isn't as promising. And what I mean by that is the cold therapy doesn't have the same effects. Men have a more beneficial effect from cold therapy than women do. But the good news is it doesn't have to be as cold for us to get some of those benefits, one of which is a decrease in anxiety or an increase in peace. And the reason why we don't need the same amount of coldness, it has to do with how quickly we shiver and how long it takes us to sweat. I have found cold showers fabulous. And hear me out. I am one of those women that used to always be cold. You know how you go to the lake and people just dive right in? When I was a kid, it would take me so long to get in the water, even though I absolutely loved it. I hate feeling cold. I often wear layers and have sweaters. And in the car, when we were first married, I'd be so frustrated because Jody would want it so cold and I would want it so warm. Like two totally different. So what I found though is the more I've had cold showers, the more I actually crave it. And when you do it in the morning, it completely changes your outlook for the day. I think one of the reasons why it works for anxiety is the same thing that we were talking about before in relation to exercise. When you get all tight, which is what happens when you get cold, everything tightens up. Once you warm up, your body releases tension. So if you're holding tension from anxiety and you get everything cold, when you get the release, you will also get some of the release from the anxiety on a physical level. It's beautiful, which relates to progressive muscle relaxation. This is something that I learned to do when I was 13, and I absolutely love it. I don't utilize it that often, but if I can't sleep at night, it's the first thing that I do. And it works the same way because progressive muscle relaxation has to do with tightening individual muscles and working your way up through your body. So you tighten things and then you release it. And when you already have tension in your body from anxiety and then you tighten it further, the release is greater. It helps to draw attention to where you're holding anxiety, and it's super relaxing. So that's why I love progressive muscle relaxation. There are a ton of scripts online if you're not sure what to do. You can listen along to YouTube videos. You can listen to, I'm sure there's podcasts that have them. You can have a script, read the script, and then just listen to a recording of yourself. That's something that I've done. I love progressive muscle relaxation. Okay, here's a great one. Another thing that increases peace is joy and laughter. When you laugh and when you have joy, it increases your feeling of optimism, which helps to increase your peace, which offsets the anxiety. And here's the funny thing. From a physiological perspective, fake laughter works the same way as real laughter in terms of releasing things. So fake it till you make it. And if you don't know how to laugh, find something that you think is funny and spend time watching it. There are so many ridiculous things on YouTube and TikTok that you can get into that probably fit your sense of humor. I don't know about you, but things that make me laugh hysterically is when people fall and they don't expect to be falling. And I know people get hurt, and that part I don't find funny. But when somebody's surprised, and I'm surprised by somebody falling, it just gives me the giggles. So if you haven't laughed in a while, find something to watch or listen to that makes you laugh. This is a long list, hey? Okay, here we go. Stretching, Pilates. I love Pilates, and Pilates works for me the same way stretching does. But even 5 minutes of stretching before bed or when you first get in helps to increase peace. And it feels so good. With any of these things, my recommendation is to pick one, try it out for a week or two, and notice. Notice the signs. Notice if you're seeing a shift in how you feel, if you're feeling your hope increase, because there's going to be things that work better for you that don't necessarily work for others. And you want to tap into not only where are you experiencing the anxiety, but where do you experience the release? Where do you experience the peace? And doing a bit of an experiment where you try one of these things from my list and notice, okay, did I feel more calm? Did I have more peace? Did I notice less tension in my neck or less twisting in my gut? You have to do it more than once. You will not get a sense if it's working for you from one time. Here's the thing. These types of exercises, these types of intentional activities are not a quick fix. They're not a one-time and you're done. It's not like popping a pill every day. These are things that take time to build into your life and require consistency. That's why they're harder than taking a pill for anxiety. And I'm not suggesting that you should or should not take a pill. That is for you and your medical doctor or your professional to discuss. The reason why I'm not using that as a strategy to increase peace is because, well, first of all, fits more on the other side of the teeter-totter to reduce anxiety, not necessarily to increase peace. But that wasn't something that I utilized when I was working through an anxiety disorder. So that's why it's not on my list, because what I'm sharing with you are things that I've done, that I have had experience implementing, and things that I have shared with people in my practice. Because as a mental health practitioner, I don't prescribe drugs I'm not qualified or educated to do that. Okay, hobbies. Hobbies are wonderful because they make you feel good, and they can be anything. There are as many hobbies, I'm sure, as there are people and things that people enjoy doing. For me, creating is a huge hobby that brings me a lot of peace, but I don't always have time to do it because I find creating takes a lot of time. But what I've done over the past is if I feel like I need to do something, but I don't have enough time to paint, I'll sometimes sketch, because I can sketch anywhere. I can sketch in my room, I can sketch in the car, and just that aspect of doodling, even if it's just doodling, I'm not even creating something, I'm just drawing lines on a page. And if you haven't tried this, try it. There's a lot of different types of art things that are easy to do that are just doodling. If you just look up doodling videos online, you'll find some things that you can do fast. And the beautiful thing about that is it's not for anyone. So you don't have to worry about what it looks like. You can just enjoy it, not for the product, but for the process, because there's something in the process that creates peace. Got a couple more. Here we go. Music. There is a lot of music that is relaxing. My recommendation is to try classical or to make a playlist that has soothing music without lyrics. And then after you've listened to it for a few days in a row, notice, do I feel different? Do I feel more at peace? Is this something that helps bring my breathing down, that helps bring the tension down in my body? Journaling. There's lots of different styles of journaling. You can get books where you have prompts. If you journal in the morning, it's a very different process than if you journal at night. So journaling at night is a way to shed the day off, whereas journaling in the morning is a little bit more deliberate to release things so that you can go into your day with more clarity. So depending on what works for your lifestyle, I would recommend trying either morning journaling or evening journaling, and to see what works better for you at this time in your life. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is food. There are certain foods that we eat that increase our feeling of peace. But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes when we eat things, we get like a feeling of like, oh, I feel so much better. Like if we're having a craving for chocolate and we eat that chocolate, we can like instantly feel good, right? But those foods don't necessarily have longevity for feeling good. So it's important to think about and notice, and this is the big part, notice what types of foods increase your peace and what types of foods increase your peace for a longer time. When our body is feeling good, which happens when we eat the right foods at the right time, and when we eat just in general, when our body feels that way, it operates better and it's more able to respond the way that it needs to stressors, which in turn increases our peace. There are foods that we can eat that make us feel better. Okay, that's it. That is my whole list. I just want to say one more piece about this. The first part is noticing what anxiety feels like for you. Because when you know what it feels like, and then you start implementing some of these activities, you start to notice what is working. Oh, I noticed that I'm not walking around with my shoulders up to my ears. If you're watching this in YouTube, you just notice that your shoulders are a little bit lower, that they've dropped. Or you'll notice that, oh, breathing actually works for me. So if I'm getting into a conversation that I know is going to be difficult or is starting to be difficult, I can start taking deeper breaths right from the get-go so that I know that I've got the oxygen coming in and I know that I'm starting in a peaceful place. If you haven't already got our handout about increasing peace, decreasing anxiety, go to the show notes and get this freebie. If you want to hear more about these kind of topics, get on my email list. My email list is similar to my podcast, but I dive into other topics in greater detail and I explain things sometimes more thoroughly. So go to the show notes for that. I created this podcast for information for you. This is not to be construed or as professional advice. If you've been listening to this and you've been realizing that your anxiety doesn't feel manageable, I would encourage you to find a professional in your area that can help you shift this, because anxiety can be manageable. And there are so many amazing resources out there that can help you shed some of this off so that you are more free to live the life that you were meant to. Please please subscribe. It's been an honor sharing today with you. And stay tuned and make sure you hit subscribe, because I have more episodes coming out that are about this topic, because we are just starting to scratch the surface. And I don't want you to miss the rest. Thank you. My name is Amy McInnes, and this is The Art of Plenty.